You're listening to the AI Moment with me, Jonathan Wagstaff.
And me, Danny Denhard.
And Dan, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we thought about diving into the AI browser wars, as I've called it. It's one of those subjects that some people are talking around, other people have gone off and started to play with the tools. When Jonathan and I come up with different categories and subjects to talk through, I've tested all of the browsers, which means I've got quite a lot of in-depth information and details which will help you decide whether moving across from Chrome or Safari is a good idea, or actually if it's worth moving at all. So if the switching costs are too high, etc. Does that sound like something we should dive into, Jonathan?
It does indeed, Dan. Lead us on.
So the way that I've explained it and the way that I've been looking at the browser wars or the AI browser wars is essentially there are a number of different providers now. A quick history summarization, basically. Most of the time we remember as Internet Explorer, Chrome or Safari. Some of us went on to the Firefox trail, but in recent times it's been very much a Chrome versus Safari sort of discussion. So there's new players within the market, and we've talked through it a little bit in some previous pods. So Atlassian bought Dia, which is the AI browser I tend to use most. There's Perplexity, the answer engine. They've come out with Comet, which is a really good browser. We'll go into why. ChatGPT over the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks have come out with Atlas, and Chrome have started to, in the US, have started to roll out some AI features. So something that I think we should sort of go through and talk through as much is historically browsers haven't earned and aren't a strategic revenue driver for these companies. So strategically it's slowed right the way down because there's no incentives to build out and improve the browsers. It wasn't something that they made much money from, and even with the app stores they still didn't really make too much money from it at all. What happened and what a lot of companies used it for was a data play. So it does create a deeper experience, it does connect you more with the tech and the brand, but it has really struggled as a business line. But what has come out in the AI race and the arms race has been that browsers really are a marketing moment and a utility for people to pick the LLM and pick the AI tools that they're going to go into. Chrome hasn't really developed in a long time, but what that has meant is all these upstarts and startups have done a great job in driving AI browsers forward, albeit all built on Chromium, which is the open source Chrome model. So a couple of standout features, I think, for each one. On the supporting newsletter, I'm going to share all of my notes and some tables, so you'll get a good visual from it. But Dia was really the first AI browser to really think about how it's going to be your assistant and offer you agent-style features. And what they've done really well is you can now start tagging Google apps into it. You can tag the calendar, or you can tag Gmail, and you can get it to actually take action in natural language. The example I love giving people is actually inviting people in a calendar invite sometimes can feel like hard work, but if you use natural language, you can actually get to work out and create the invite and the calendar invite really, really quickly for you, and you don't have to start going between different tabs. That's a really good one. Another one that they've got really well is custom skills. And essentially it takes up and removes a load of the recurring tasks that you might have. So the one I love giving people, and I also use it in Comet, is I consume a lot of information to learn, but I want to understand, is that 1 hour podcast worth my time? So I put it into Dia, do /50, and it has a custom takeaway. So it writes an exec summary, takes all the best points of the video, writes the risks and benefits for me, and then tells me why I should watch it or why I shouldn't. And that will sometimes save me hours of good and bad content. That's very similar in Perplexity's Comet, but what it's really good at doing, Comet, in comparison to other tools, is that it can go off and do information retrieval, aka scraping, and it can also do some competitor analysis all within that browser. So it's very, very easy and very quick to do these tasks and agents for you. And it's also very good at finding discount codes. So if you really want to find a discount code for something you're looking for, it will go off and find the working one for you. And then it will input in there for you and tell you that it's found it. And it often does it within seconds. These are all really simple use cases. And it's something that we should, as AI enthusiasts should be sort of promoting as different use cases. What do you think so far, Jonathan? Have I convinced you to try and move across, or is there a couple of other things that I could tease you with?
Well, no, I think the use cases are strong, and I think the conversation that I've been having a few times around them is, one very quick technical thing to say is that in most cases, the AI browser needs an M-class chip. So most of them, or a lot of them, like ChatGPT Atlas, is only available for Mac at the moment, not for Windows, but they're going to get there with Windows. But it needs an M-class chip. So if you're on an old Intel chip, they don't work at the moment. I'm sure we'll get there, but at the moment they don't. But I think the biggest concern I see with people is the whole security and privacy piece, which is if you are, I mean, part of the idea with these things is they learn about you, as you say, can go and do tasks for you. They learn you. They'll start to learn things like your bank account stuff because you're giving them agency to go and do things for you. And I think I'm seeing a lot of people very concerned about the potential security loopholes in that. If this thing knows an awful lot about you like that, then could somebody hack it, manipulate it? And, so what are your thoughts on the security and privacy question, Dan? That's a big one, I think.
On the point of security, one thing that I've noticed frequently is how many of the big tech companies have come out and they've already done security reviews on these AI browsers. And they've found some obviously security holes and flaws. One thing I would say what is really critically important is I personally don't understand all of the technical information. So if you do have someone who is technical minded or an IT person or company, they're probably the best people to give you the right advice. One thing that I'm telling people is if you're worried about your own data and security around AI browsers, if it isn't in Chrome, I'd just be a little bit mindful of using those. And from what I've seen is they are particularly slow because they're going off and constantly querying information. There is probably a data play, and there's probably something that you might have in your manifesto that we've talked around before that clearly calls out any sort of worries or security flaws. So if your team are going off and using them, I'd highly recommend that they do it away on their own machines and not with your company assets or information.
Yeah, I think the security story is, as you say, still unproven. My own feeling at the moment, I think you were right what you said earlier on about when all of the players got into the first generation of browsers, and really what that was about collecting data, because what they all wanted to do was they wanted to learn where people were going on the internet, what they were doing, how could they monetize that information. Now, these guys are already learning that stuff because their LLM models are allowing them to know what people are asking for and what they're doing. So they didn't need a browser to do that. So I wonder whether it's a step towards trying to be a kind of life agent, as we talked about before, this kind of operating system for your life. There's another theory that Rand Fishkin put forward on I think it was LinkedIn the other day, which you'll have seen and you'll know Rand, and many of our listeners will know Rand. And he said he believes that they are developing browsers because they want to get people to open their websites to being crawled. And the background to that is, of course, a lot of people are very upset about the way that the LLMs have quote unquote stolen or allegedly stolen intellectual property. And so a lot of people now have switched off crawling on their website for people like ChatGPT and the others. And so Rand's theory is it possible that the reason they've released a browser is it would make people reopen their websites for ChatGPT to crawl them so that these browsers can access them in case it's a real person using the browser that's trying to access the website rather than an LLM crawler. I don't know. It's a theory. My own summary on the thing would be, I think I can see the advantages. I think there's huge potential. I'm really worried about security and privacy at this stage. And I think that needs working through a little more before we can get really enthusiastic. But you know better than me, Danny. So what's your summary on this as we bring the podcast to an end?
Sure. So my summary is a lot of these companies are doing it to innovate, doing it to have far more data and be able to run more analysis, especially if it's assistant based, so be it become an assistant and complete tasks, or become more agentic and complete tasks and activities on your behalf. I would just be mindful of how you consider traffic in the future for your business. So web traffic used to be human and bot. Now and bot was always bad. Now you've got human assistant, which will be AI. You've got agent, which is AI, and then you've still got bots that will crawl your site. So you now have to work out what is good traffic, good bad traffic. So traffic and audience, and work out how you enable it or disable it from your perspective. And just be mindful of when there are lawsuits and there are a lot of big publications that are suing multiple different AI providers, just be mindful of what they can take and what they can't take from when they crawl and scrape your website. So there are a couple of different ways. And if you want something for the future, and it's away from premium browsing, so you don't have to pay for a service. Just think of how this might create a new UX for your website or an interaction surface for your business. So once they work out different ways of browsing and enabling different technologies to come onto your site, just really consider how this might open up a new way of interacting with websites and interacting with your data, with you leading the charge on innovation.
That sounds like a whole different podcast to me, Dan. There's a whole lot to talk about there. Good to see you, my friend, and I will see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for listening today, everyone. If you liked what you heard, please give us a rating and review in any of the podcast players. We have a supporting newsletter, which is aimoment.co.uk, that comes out on Mondays and Fridays with every pod, and we dive a little bit deeper. So please subscribe there. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.